This is the war notes. And we're going to start by talking about the jump off. Now, in 1860, Lincoln's elected president, even though he's not even on the ballot in most of the southern states. We can talk about this actually in class. He won by presenting himself as the second viable choice at the convention. The election also showed politics were split among regional lines. And if you want to know more about Lincoln, there you go. There you go again. Now, southern states are outraged someone could win the election without even having their vote. And as soon as Lincoln's elected, South Carolina secedes. So South Carolina says, I'm out. In the next few days, 7 deep South states follow South Carolina, and it includes Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Bama, Georgia, and Florida. They joined with South Carolina to form the Confederate States of America. Notice there's one big state missing there, Virginia. Now, the Confederates formed a government that stressed states' rights. The only restriction on slavery is that they began restricting the slave trade. Because Great Britain and France had started to restrict the slave trade long before them and had outlawed slavery, it was an effort to get foreign support from those countries. And if you want to know more about the Confederate States of America, there you go. Now, the crazy man, Jefferson Davis, was elected the new president of the Confederacy because he supported the Compromise of 1850, while he also believed in states' rights. And throughout this, some senators were trying to compromise, but they really stunk at it, and there was no compromising. And if you want to know more about Jeff Davis, there you go. And there you go again. Now, when southern states seceded, they said, give me the federal forts. The Union was actually able to keep 4 of them, including Fort Sumter in South Carolina. Now, by April of 1861, Sumter needed resupplies. They needed stuff. They needed food. And Lincoln knew this would risk war, and he tries to tell the South he's only sending food. But the South says, yeah, right, Lincoln. The South was suspicious from the start, and so they ordered Fort Sumter to surrender. And when Fort Sumter wouldn't surrender, they fired on him. If you want to know more about Fort Sumter, there you go. And there you go again. Now, Sumter's what angered both sides even more. And Virginia, Arkansas, Tennessee, and North Carolina said, we're out, federal government, and they joined the South. Now, the North had lots of advantages in this war because really the war started now. They had the greater population. They can replace guys when they die. They had industry, which made them more prepared. They had immigrants who were able to produce better supplies so they can supply their troops and give them stuff. The North had better railroads in order to move troops. The North also had a better Navy, while the South really didn't have any, which led to blockades and problems for the South. And the North had an established government, which is always a key point in war, and they had a good leader in Lincoln. Now, the South has a few advantages. First off is the psychological advantage. The South's fighting for survival of their way of life, and so they're going to fight harder. The South also had the best military commanders, such as Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, James Longstreet, and others, but a couple of them are going to die, which really hurts the South. The South also had the strategic advantage because they were fighting a defensive war on familiar ground. The vast majority of the war was in the South. And if you want to know more about Robert E. Lee, there you go. And there you go again. Now, the Southern strategies were to preserve the army. They wanted to preserve the fight to erode Northern will. They also had to get foreign support, and in the end, it never comes. So they thought Great Britain and France wanted their cotton so much that they'd actually support them. Now, the Northern strategies are 2 things. The first is the Anaconda Plan. They're going to cut off southern ports with a blockade, and they're going to win a campaign west around the Mississippi River. And the whole goal was to cut the South in 2. They also wanted to keep the border states like Missouri, Kentucky, Delaware, and Maryland, and eventually West Virginia in the Union. And if you want to know more about border states, there you go.